The transport ship came down through the thick clouds, and Zira watched Earth grow bigger and bigger below her. The planet was so blue and so beautiful, and it made her feel strange inside. Her triple heart beat in different rhythms as she pressed her small violet face against the cold window. She had never seen anything like this before in her entire life. Back on her home world of Kethrin, everything was made of crystal and metal. The cities floated high above the ground, and the sky was always purple. The people there did not smile much, and they did not talk about feelings. They worked and studied and followed rules, and that was what being Kethrin meant. But Zira had always been different since the day she was born. Her parents had told her many times that something was wrong with her mind. She thought too much about why things happened and how other beings felt. She wanted to understand beauty and music and connection. These things were not important on Kethrin. Her mother had said to her that Zira felt too deeply and thought too strangely, and would never fit into their society. Her father had simply looked sad when she asked questions about emotions and dreams, when the human diplomatic ship arrived at Kethrin to discuss trade between the worlds. Zira's parents saw an opportunity. They had spoken to government officials and made arrangements. They had decided that Zira should go to Earth in an adoption program. Maybe a human family would want her. Maybe humans who felt emotions would understand her better than her own kind. The journey across space took many weeks. Zira sat in a small room on the transport vessel and watched the stars move past. She did not talk to the other aliens on the ship because most of them did not understand her. They wanted to complete their missions and get paid. They did not wonder about connection or belonging like she did, as the ship descended toward Earth. Zira felt afraid and excited at the same time. She did not know what would happen to her on this alien world. She did not know if anyone would want to keep her, or if she would spend the rest of her life moving from place to place with no home. She clutched her small bag of belongings and waited for the landing. The adoption center was a large building made of white stone and glass. It had many windows and doors and long hallways that seemed to go on forever. Zira was taken to a small room with a soft chair and a window that looked out at other buildings and streets. A human woman in a blue uniform explained the rules to her through a translation device. The woman said that Zira would stay in this room and humans would come to look at her and learn about her. They would read information about her background and her abilities and her personality. If a human wanted to adopt her, they would fill out papers and sign their name. Then Zira would become their daughter legally. This was how the system worked. On Earth, Zira asked if she had to stay in this room forever. The woman said no, that she could leave the room to exercise and eat meals and learn about human culture. But she had to be in her room when humans came to visit. This was the only way people could meet her. The first few days were very hard. Many humans came to look at Zira. Some stayed for only a few seconds and moved on to the next room. Some asked questions about her home world and her abilities and what she liked to eat. Zira answered everything politely, but felt sad inside. She could tell that most of them did not really want to understand her. They just wanted a strange alien to keep as something unique. After 2 weeks, Zira began to feel hopeless. She wondered if maybe her parents had been right. Maybe she really was broken and strange. Maybe no one would ever want to adopt her. Maybe she would have to live in this center forever watching humans pass by and never stop to really see her. She stopped eating much and spent most of her time looking out the window. She watched birds fly in the sky and wondered what it felt like to move through the air so freely. She watched children play in the park across the street and wondered what it felt like to be part of a group where people cared about you. Her skin turned darker, shades of blue and purple. The caretakers noticed and brought a doctor to check her. The doctor said she was sad and missing home. The center director suggested that maybe the adoption program was not right for her. Maybe she should go back to Kethrin, or live in a facility for aliens who could not find families. But Zira did not want to go back. She did not belong on Kethrin. She belonged somewhere, but she did not know where yet. She asked if she could stay a little longer. The director agreed, but said it might be her last chance. Then on day 23, everything changed. A woman came to the window and pressed her hand against the glass. She had kind eyes that looked like they understood sadness. The woman stood there for a long time, just looking at Zira without saying anything. Zira felt something happen inside her triple heart. Something woke up, something that had been sleeping since she arrived on Earth. This woman was different. She was not looking at Zira like she was strange. She was looking at her like she was important. The woman came back the next day and the day after that. She introduced herself through the speaker system. Her name was Grace. She told Zira stories about her life on Earth. She talked about mountains that reached toward the sky and music that made her body move in dancing. She talked about how she had always wanted a daughter but never found the right person until she saw Zira through the glass. Grace came every single day for 3 weeks. She brought small gifts like flowers and fruit and books. She spent hours talking to Zira and asking questions about her life on Kethrin. She asked what Zira liked and what made her happy, and what she dreamed about. She really listened to the answers. She did not look away when Zira talked about emotions. Zira began to hope. Again and again she felt her hearts beating together when she saw Grace walking toward her window. One day Grace told her something important. She said that she had decided to adopt her, that she wanted Zira to be part of her family, that she believed Zira was not broken but beautiful and special in her own way. Zira could not speak for a moment. Her violet skin turned bright colors, and her eyes filled with tears when Grace said these words. Then Grace signed the papers with careful letters, and Zira understood that her life was going to be completely different from that moment forward. A woman named Grace had chosen her and wanted to keep her forever. Grace took Zira by the hand and walked her out of the adoption center into the bright sunlight. The day was warm, and the air smelled like growing things and salt water from the ocean. Zira had never felt real sunshine on her skin before. She had only known the artificial light of crystal cities. Back on Kethrin, the sun was far away and everything was cold. The drive to Grace's house took many hours. They traveled in a vehicle that moved along black roads. Through the windows, Zira saw trees, and fields and small towns and people everywhere. There were so many humans doing so many different things. Some were working and some were playing and some were just walking and looking at the sky. Grace pointed out different things and explained what they were. She showed Zira mountains in the distance and told her that people liked to climb them for exercise and to see the view. She showed her rivers where people could swim and fish. She showed her cities with tall buildings where thousands of humans lived together. She talked the entire time, and Zira listened to every word. She wanted to remember everything about this journey. When they finally arrived at Grace's house, Zira thought it was the most beautiful place she had ever seen. It was small, with walls made of wood and a roof made of dark material. There was a garden in front with flowers of many colors and a big tree with branches that reached high into the air. There was a door made of wood and windows where light came through. Inside the house was warm and comfortable. The walls were painted in soft colors and there were pictures hanging, showing Grace and other humans and places that looked important. Grace showed Zira to a room that was now her own. There was a bed with blankets that felt soft like nothing Zira had ever touched before. There was a window that looked out at trees, and there was a desk where they could study together. That first night Zira did not sleep. She was too excited and nervous. She walked through every room of the house and touched every object. She looked at all the pictures and read all the words in the books on the shelves. She sat in the kitchen and imagined making meals there. She sat in the living room and imagined sitting with Grace watching the night sky. In the morning Grace made breakfast. Zira did not know what to expect. She had eaten nutrient paste her whole life on Kethrin. It tasted like nothing. It gave her energy, but it had no flavor. Grace put eggs and bread and fruit on a plate and showed Zira how to use a fork and knife and spoon. Zira put a piece of egg into her mouth and her eyes grew very large. She had never experienced anything like this. The flavors were so complex and surprising that she cried. Small tears from her multiple eyes. Grace laughed and said that Earth food was wonderful, and that Zira would love all the different kinds of meals she would eat. Over the next few weeks, Zira learned so many new things. Grace taught her about human customs and how to dress in human clothes and how to speak without the translation device that had been necessary at the adoption center. Zira had learned human languages on her ship, but she had been afraid to use them. Now, with Grace encouraging her, she spoke more and more each day. Grace took her to a doctor who examined her carefully. The doctor was kind and gentle, and explained that Zira was healthy and strong, just different from human children, but healthy in her own way. The doctor said that her 3 hearts were remarkable and that the color changes in her skin when she felt emotions were beautiful. Not strange. Grace and Zira went to the library and borrowed many books. Zira loved books. She spent hours reading about Earth history and human culture and science. She learned about music and art and sport. She learned about food from different parts of the world and about how humans celebrated special days and holidays. Grace would sit near her reading her own books, and they would sit in comfortable silence together. One day, Grace took Zira to the ocean. Zira had never seen so much water in one place. The waves were moving and crashing against the sand, and the sound was both scary and wonderful. Grace took her hand and they walked into the shallow water together. Zira felt the cold and the movement, and she laughed. She really laughed, with her whole body shaking and her skin turning bright colors. Grace asked her if she wanted to learn to swim. Zira said, yes. So Grace found a teacher who came to their house twice a week. Soon Zira was moving through the water like a creature born to it. Her body was smaller and more flexible than human children, and she learned quickly. The teacher said that she was a natural, but not everything was easy. One day Grace took Zira to the market, and a man stared at her for a very long time. Then he came over and said that aliens should not be on Earth, that Earth was for humans only, and that Grace should not have brought this creature to their world. Zira felt the words like cold water inside her. She turned dark blue and wanted to hide somewhere. Grace took her hand firmly and looked at the man with anger in her eyes. She told him that Zira was her daughter and that she belonged here just as much as any human belonged. She said that Earth was big enough for everyone and that fear was not an excuse for being mean. They left the market, and Grace took Zira to a quiet park. They sat under a tree, and Grace held her close. Grace explained that some humans were afraid of things they did not understand. Fear made them act badly sometimes. But that was not Zira's fault. That was the man's own problem, not something Zira had done wrong. Zira asked if Grace still wanted her, even though some humans were mean. Grace took her face in her hands and looked directly into all 3 of Zira's eyes. She said that she wanted Zira more than anything. She said that Zira was exactly who she was supposed to be, and that together, they would be okay no matter what anyone else said. From that day forward, Zira understood that Grace would always protect her and always choose her. That was what being adopted really meant. It was not just papers and signatures. It was someone choosing you every single day. As the months went by, Zira began to understand what it meant to have a real home. She woke up every morning to light coming through her window, and she knew that Grace was in the next room. She knew that breakfast would happen, and that Grace would smile at her, and that the day would be filled with learning and discovering new things. Her violet skin started to show brighter colors more often. Her sadness went away. Grace enrolled Zira in a school for children from all over the world. Some children were human, but many were from different species. There were small furry beings with long tails, and beings made of something like crystal, and beings with scales and wings. The teacher explained that Earth was becoming a place where many different species lived together. At first, the other children stared at Zira, but soon they became curious. The children asked about her 3 hearts and her 3 eyes and why her skin changed colors. Zira explained that her skin was like a feeling display that showed what her emotions were. Some children thought this was cool, and they wanted to know what different colors meant. Zira told them that purple meant she was thinking, and blue meant she was sad, and red meant she was excited and happy. Made friends with a human girl named Lily and a small furry creature named Bix. They would sit together during lunch and share their food. Lily had never met an alien before, and she was fascinated by everything about Zira. She asked Zira to teach her the Kethran language, and Zira taught her simple words. Bix was from a planet called Zortex and could only speak in high-pitched sounds. But Zira and Lily seemed to understand what Bix meant. One day at school, Zira had to give a presentation about her home world. She stood in front of the class and described the crystal cities and the purple sky, and how everything was very organized and logical. She explained that on Kethrin, emotions were not considered important, and that people focused on duty and work. She told them that she had felt different her whole life, and that was why she came to Earth. The teacher asked her what was different about feeling emotions. The whole class listened carefully. Zira took a moment and then explained that emotions made life beautiful. Emotions made you care about other beings. Emotions made you want to protect people and help them and spend time with them. Emotions made you feel connected to other beings, even if they were different from you. Said that when she first met Grace, she felt hope for the first time in a very long time. And when Grace adopted her, she felt love, which was the strongest emotion she had ever experienced. She said that love made her want to be better and stronger. It made her want to learn and grow. It made her want to make Grace proud. The whole class was quiet for a moment. Then everyone started clapping and cheering. Zira felt her skin turn to bright pink and gold. A student who had never talked to her before raised his hand and said that Zira made him think about feelings differently. He said he never thought about how special emotions really were. Grace was very proud when Zira told her about the presentation. That night they sat on the porch and watched the sunset together. Grace told Zira that she had always believed that feelings were the most important thing about being alive. She said that when Zira first arrived at the adoption center, she could see the sadness and hope in her, and she knew they were meant to be together. Grace taught Zira many things that had nothing to do with school. She taught her how to cook simple meals. They made bread together, and Zira loved how the dough felt in her hands. She taught her how to grow things in the garden. They planted vegetables and flowers, and Zira watered them every day and watched them grow. She taught her how to play music. They got a small instrument, and Grace showed her how to make sounds that were beautiful. One day, Grace asked Zira if she wanted to learn about Grace's own family. Zira said yes. Grace showed her old photographs and told her stories. Her parents had died when she was young, and she had been raised by her grandmother. She did not have any siblings, and she had always felt alone. She said that when she saw Zira in the adoption center, she understood that they were both lonely beings who needed each other. Grace told Zira that she had waited her whole life to be a mother to someone, and that she had almost given up hope. She said that finding Zira had been like a miracle. She said that Zira had made her life complete and happy, in a way she had never thought possible. Zira asked Grace if her parents on Kethrin would want her back. Grace said that she did not. No, but that it did not matter because Zira was hers now, and nothing would ever change that Zira did not think about Kethrin much anymore. The crystal cities seemed cold and distant. Her real life was here with Grace in the warm house near the forest and the ocean. Grace took Zira to meet some of her friends. A group of humans came to dinner and brought their own adopted alien children. There was a woman named Helen with a small red creature that communicated through colors, and an older man named George with a tall metallic being that spoke in deep tones. There were others too, and they all sat around a big table and ate and told stories. The adopted aliens sat together and talked about their experiences. Zira learned that many of them had felt alone on their homeworlds, and that coming to Earth and being adopted had changed their lives completely. Some of them had been sad at first, like Zira, but their human families had helped them heal and become happy. They all agreed that being adopted meant being chosen and loved and belonging to someone forever. That night, after everyone left, Zira lay in her bed and thought about her life. She thought about the adoption center and how sad she had been. She thought about Grace coming to her window and everything changing. She thought about all the things she had learned and all the friends she had made. She thought about how her skin was usually bright colors now, instead of the sad dark blue it had been. She understood that she had found what she was looking for. She had found a home and a family and a reason to exist that was more than just following rules and doing duty. She had found love and connection and belonging, and that was everything. Years passed and Zira grew taller, though not as tall as a human adult. She developed her own style of moving and walking that was graceful and quick. Her skin learned to show more subtle and beautiful colors as she became more skilled at controlling her emotions. She could show happiness in light gold and contentment in soft blue and thoughtfulness. In gentle purple, Grace and Zira settled into a comfortable life together. They had routines and habits. They would wake up together and have breakfast and talk about what the day would bring. Grace went to work at a place where she helped other families adopt alien children, and Zira went to school where she studied and made more friends. The teacher noticed that Zira was very smart and could understand difficult concepts quickly. She read more books than any other student in the class. She spent time in the library learning about science and history and philosophy. She especially loved reading about how humans and aliens had learned to live together. She loved stories about other families that had formed between different species. At home, Zira and Grace developed their own special traditions. On Sunday mornings, they would go to the farmer market and pick out fresh fruits and vegetables. They would cook together and make a big meal. Grace had taught Zira how to cook many different dishes, and Zira loved the science of how ingredients could combine to make something delicious. On Sunday evenings, they would sit together and read their books in comfortable silence. Grace sometimes took Zira to her workplace, and Zira would sit in the office and watch families come to adopt aliens. She remembered her own experience at the adoption center, and it made her heart feel grateful for Grace. Every family that left with a new alien child made Zira feel happy, because she knew those aliens would have homes and families like she did. But one day, something unexpected happened. A message came through a special communication system from the government of Kethrin. The message was for Zira. It said that the Kethrin government had learned that she had been successfully adopted by a human and had adapted well to Earth life. They said that she was a unique individual who understood both Kethrin and human culture. The message explained that they wanted Zira to return home to help establish better relations between the two species. They offered her a position where she would be respected and honored. She would represent her species and work with the human government to make treaties and agreements. They promised her power and influence and all the things that were considered important on Kethrin. Zira read the message 3 times. Grace sat beside her and held her hand and asked what she was thinking. Zira did not answer for a long time. She thought about what it would mean to go back to Kethrin. She thought about the crystal cities and the cold air. She thought about her biological parents who had sent her away. Thought about what her life would be like if she returned. She would have respect and status. She would have important work to do. She would have the approval of her entire species. She would be someone that Kethrins respected and honored. But then, she looked at Grace and she thought about her real life. She thought about her bed with the soft blankets. She thought about the forest outside her window. She thought about swimming in the ocean and playing music with Grace. She thought about school and her friends Lily and Bix. She thought about Sundays at the farmer market and Sunday nights reading together. She thought about all the ways that Grace had loved her and chosen her every single day. Zira took Grace's hand and said that she wanted to stay on Earth. She said that Grace was her real family, not the people who had sent her away. She said that being adopted had given her everything that mattered, being loved and having a home, and belonging to someone who chose her. Grace began to cry happy tears. She held Zira close and told her that she was so proud of her, that she had known all along that this was where Zira belonged, that no honor or power could compare to the love they had for each other. Zira sat down and wrote a response to the Kethrin government. She explained politely that she appreciated their offer, but that she had found her true home on Earth. She explained that her greatest desire had already been fulfilled, that she had been adopted by a woman who loved her, and that nothing was more important than that. She wrote that she understood her role as a bridge between species, and that she could do that work while living on Earth. She said that she would share what she had learned about human emotions and human values with her people. She said that the greatest gift humans had given to the galaxy was showing that love and family could exist between any beings, no matter how different they were. When she finished the letter, she read it to Grace, and Grace told her it was beautiful and perfect. Zira sent the message across the stars back to her homeworld, and then she put away the communication device. That night she lay in bed and thought about how different her life could have been if Grace had not stopped at her window that day in the adoption center. She thought about all the other aliens who were still waiting to be chosen. She decided that when she grew up, she wanted to help them find families, like she had found Grace. Grace came into her room to say goodnight, and Zira told her about this decision. Grace said that it was a wonderful goal, and that Zira would be amazing at helping other beings find families. She said that Zira understood better than almost anyone what it meant to be alone and what it meant to be saved by love. Grace kissed the top of Zira's head and left the room. Zira lay in the darkness and felt her 3 hearts beating together in perfect rhythm. She felt happy and safe and exactly where she belonged. That was all that mattered. That was everything. When Zira finished school, she was older and wiser, and she carried in her heart all the lessons that life had taught her. She had studied hard and learned about psychology and social work and how to help beings in pain. She wanted to understand what made families work and how love could heal the broken parts inside people. Grace had encouraged every step of this journey. She helped Zira study and took her to visit different places where social workers helped people. She taught her that the most important skill was listening and truly seeing people when they talk to you. Grace said that this was what had made Zira trust her in the adoption center. Zira had felt truly seen and understood for the first time in her life. Zira decided to volunteer at the adoption center where she had first waited to be chosen. The director remembered her and was happy to have her back. Zira explained that she wanted to help other aliens who were waiting to find families. The director gave her a job where she could work with new arrivals and help them adjust to the center. The first day back at the adoption center, Zira felt emotions that were complicated. She remembered the sadness and hopelessness she had felt sitting in that room watching humans pass by. She remembered how dark and cold her skin had turned. She remembered not believing that anyone would ever want her. But she also remembered the moment when Grace came to her window. Everything had changed in that moment, and Zira wanted to help other beings experience that same kind of change. She began to meet with aliens who had just arrived at the center. She would sit with them and listen to their stories. Some were sad and some were angry and some were confused. Zira told them her own story. She explained that she had felt exactly like they felt and that she did not think anyone would want her either. But then something unexpected had happened. Someone had seen her and chosen her, and everything had become different. Zira helped the aliens understand what adoption meant. She explained that it was not slavery or ownership. The human parents who came to adopt did so because they wanted to love and care for an alien being. They wanted to share their lives. They wanted to create a family. She told them that the adoption papers were important because they made everything official and legal. They protected both the alien and the human. They made it so that the family was real and permanent and recognized by the law. She explained that signing the papers was like saying forever. We are going to be together forever. And that was a beautiful promise over time. Zira noticed something interesting. She could sense which humans who came to the center would be good parents. By the way they looked at the aliens in the glass rooms, Grace had seen something in Zira that called to her. And Zira learned to see that same quality in other humans. They looked with their whole heart, not just their eyes. They seemed to understand that there was a person inside each alien, a being who felt and thought and wanted to be loved. Sometimes Zira would sit in a room with an alien and a potential parent, and she could feel the moment when connection happened. It was like watching 2 pieces of a puzzle come together for the first time. She would see the aliens' eyes change and see their skin change colors and see hope bloom inside them. She would see the human smile with real smile that came from deep inside their chest. Many families formed because of Zira's work. The adoption center director asked her to work there full-time instead of just volunteering. Zira said yes. She wanted to dedicate her life to helping other beings find what she had found. Grace was so proud of her. That evening they sat together and Grace told her that this was exactly what she had hoped for when she first adopted Zira. She said that she believed Zira would do important things with her life and that helping other aliens find families was the most important thing anyone could do. Years passed and Zira became known throughout Earth as the alien who helped other aliens find families. People called her an inspiration and a bridge between species. The news media wanted to interview her and tell her story. But Zira always insisted on keeping the focus on the families that had been created through the adoption program. One day, the Kethrin government sent another message. They said that they had heard about Zira's work, and that she was bringing honor to her species in a way they had never expected. They asked if she would consider visiting Kethrin to tell other Kethrins about emotions and family and love. She could stay on Earth, but she could help her home world understand. These things, Grace and Zira discussed this new opportunity. Zira decided that she could do both things. She could continue her work at the adoption center, and she could travel to Kethrin to share what she had learned. She believed that both her worlds could benefit from understanding each other. The adoption papers that Grace had signed so many years ago were now framed on Zira's desk at the adoption center. They were old and worn from being handled and displayed, but they were the most precious thing Zira owned. Sometimes she would stand and look at them and remember the exact moment when everything changed. She thought about how one woman named Grace had decided to sign her name on official papers. That one decision had changed everything. It had given Zira a home and a family and a life filled with love and purpose. It had shown Zira that she was not broken or strange, but beautiful and special in her own way. Zira realized that the most important thing humans had ever taught her was that love was the greatest force in the universe. Love could heal wounds that seemed permanent. Love could create families between beings who had nothing in common except the desire to care for each other. Love could transform loneliness into belonging. Zira walked through the adoption center and sat with new aliens and helped them understand that they too could be chosen. She carried with her every lesson that Grace had taught her, every moment of kindness and patience and genuine love every time Grace had chosen her, every moment of being truly seen and accepted completely. The little violet girl who had arrived at the adoption center broken and hopeless had become a woman who gave hope to thousands. She had become living. Proof that adoption was real, and that families could form between any beings and that love was possible for everyone. And every single day she thought about Grace, and felt her three hearts beat together in gratitude for the woman who had stopped at her window and chosen her and changed everything forever.